ice creams or champagne. And the tour is going to be like this, really well cut. The first part is going to be about the quarries of Paris. The second is going to be about cemeteries and how we dealt with the cemeteries in Paris for 1,000 years, 2,000 years. Let's see how much I can shorten within 10 minutes. Then the longest part of the tour is going to be dedicated to the catacombs, the museum of the catacombs of the city of Paris. And the last one is going to be dedicated on the Cataphiles. Have you heard that word before? Cataphiles? Yes? No? I'm going to write that a bit later. Just before we start the tour, this is a free tour. It's donation-based. I'm going to just send a link now and just remind something at the end. But every help is appreciated. But right now, let's dive into the tour. I'm going to write something. This is why I need that blank space. It's called Cataphile, the lovers of the catacombs. Let's go on. Can you all see my screen? It's fine. Can you all see the tip of my arrow on my screen? Is that okay? Yes? Thank you very much. So, look at these people. This is us, right? 1921, all happy to go to the catacombs. I've been doing that tour of the catacombs for quite a while, and I love to watch these old archive pictures. And maybe this is what pushed me to grow a mustache after a time. Look at this. At this point of history, you had to go to the catacombs of Paris with a candle, and you have to pay only 1 franc, about like $0.25, not even, right? 15 cents of a dollar at that moment of history to get inside the catacombs of Paris. Things have changed, but let's go back to the beginning. This is Paris. Look at it. So this is a wonderful map of Paris, right? Beginning of the 20th century, but the quarries haven't moved too much, haven't changed too much. All the yellow part that you see in the south are the quarries of Paris. These are limestone quarries. So this is the wall of Paris built in, this is the limits of Paris until 1863. The quarries of limestone, they are here. There are some here. From the, if you want to visualize where we are, this is what we call the Field of Mars. And at the end of it, you have the Eiffel Tower, the point of my arrow, right, of my mouse. In front of it, you have got the Trocadero, which is on a little hill where quarries are. This, from the sky, you can recognize it. This is the Arch of Triumph. So, we do not see the slides. Sorry, you can only see the skulls. No worries. This is the magic of Zoom. It happens all the time. Are we good now? Are you all set up? Can you see the maps?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So we
Yes.
start again. Thank you very much. I have the chat always open. So these are the quarries of Paris. Look at this. Amazing, isn't it? You have the wall, city wall of 1863 over here. This is the actual shape of Paris today. You have the Eiffel Tower, the point of my arrow here. You go across the river, you have got Trocadero, amazing shots of the Eiffel Tower, quarries, Arch of Triumph, the roundabout, right? Charles de Gaulle Étoile, then the Champs-Élysées seen from the sky, then the Louvre, this entire thing, Louvre and Concorde. In the north, Montmartre and some gypsum quarries. So the green is what you make plaster with. It's not the same type of quarry. Limestone here, gypsum there. We focus on this. Now, next thing, why do we have quarries? There is a man, 52 BC, who is always, I'm going to come back to Napoleon. There is a man, 52 BC, who is called Julius Caesar. You know Julius Caesar, right? Caesar Palace, Caesar Salad. Well, this man is also known to have conquered the Gauls, 56 to 52 BC. And when he's going to conquer the Gauls, within few years, he's going to enslave half of the population. And this million people living here are going to build the infrastructure for the Roman Empire for the next 300 or 400 years. They're going to build the Roman roads, the aqueducts, the baths. Once upon a time, Parisians used to wash themselves. I mean, this is something kind of amazing. The thing is that, what do we have? Up, going too fast, come on. On the left side, this is a Roman quarry. In the Gauls, most of the time they will try to do open air quarries. They have enough manpower. This is much more safe to have an open air quarry. And the man will just remove all the dirt that's on top of the hill, right? And just dig open air the limestone. On the right side, what have we got? This is 1,000 years later. This type of quarry will appear, properly speaking, in the region of Paris because it exists as well. Quarries exist before. But this appears around Paris when around the 12th century, when the Gothic architecture starts, when we start to build the Louvre, 1200s, Notre Dame, 1163, when Sean Connery is fighting back to England, right, and meets Kevin Costner in Robin Hood. This is exactly the same time frame. These people are free. They are paid to do this job. So what's happening? They don't remove all the mess on top. They're going to dig wells and they're going to pillar from the side of the quarries. And look at this. This is how we do it. You have got this wonderful wheel. We go down, we dig a well, and this is how it works. You dig a well, you take the stone from down there, and you bring it back up. And this is the pillars that you see, is that left chunk of stones that look like this one. It's called a turned pillar. You turn around a chunk of stone, you don't quarry it, and it makes a solid link between what we call the sky of the quarry and its bottom. So this is what we did in 12th century until the 1500s. 1500s, Renaissance kicks in. We need more stone. So we're going to replace these pillars by these ones, which are called armed pillar, crappy ones that are just the leftover stone that you cannot use because Paris cannot be dug deeper. We are already at the bottom of a basin. You dig deeper, we're going to bump into the water table. So armed pillar. Look at how much faith there is into this thing. I love to look at this tiny rock. The guy, really, the quarryman was like, oh, right? It's going to hold, it's going to hold. And for the next 300 years, Paris is supposed to be supported on these types of pillar. Isn't that crazy? This is 90 feet below the ground. There is 90 feet to 100 feet of ground. This, what you see right now, is what we are doing today to still consolidate some of these quarries because these quarries were huge. How does it work? Let's look at a slice of Paris. Just, I would like to know if you can write to me in the private message if I'm talking too fast or not clearly enough. I'm trying to make a wonderful effort because I have a French accent otherwise. Thank you. So what do you have here? A slice of Paris. At the very bottom, the water table. We dug the new metro, maybe line 14, the first automated one for those who came to Paris already, underneath the water table. Then you have the quarries right away. On top of the quarries, sometimes few feet, maybe like 6 or 7 feet, maybe 8 feet below, you have got the train, suburban trains, right? The RER, and then the metro, the subway, then rainwater, sewers collectors, then crypts, then the parking lots, and then these lovely buildings with balconies that are useless. So this is a slice of Paris. The quarries is what Paris is sitting on. And this is the consequence of centuries of carelessness or not thinking that Paris was going to become such a capital. Just to put things back into context, when the Romans came, Paris was nothing. The Romans had already sewers, piping system, urine collectors. We were a fishing village almost. Look at this. This is what we call a sinkhole, isn't it? You have seen this when there is one sometimes in cities, like all the journals are like, oh my God, there is a sinkhole in the city. Nobody could like predict it. We can predict it because there are quarries underneath usually. And look at these. I really love that picture. When I was doing the tour and looking at the archive picture, choosing them, look at this one. This is a commercial for the best alcohol to have at home. Dubonnet, this is orange alcohol to mix with the beer. And look at the face of this man. I hope he's not the owner of that house, right? I was thinking of changing the windows, perhaps. No, come on. So this is terrifying. We had like dozens of these collapse of these sinkholes in Paris in the 1760s. So much so that the journals were titling, Paris built on an empty shell. Is there someone to save it? He's coming from the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. And no, it's Superman, right? And how does Superman looks like? That's him. He's called Charles Axel Guillaume. He's one of Louis XVI royal architects of the mine. He's going to be sent down and map and pillar the quarries of Paris. He's going to discover and map more than 80 miles of pathways of these quarries and 3,500 acres of empty rooms, just like the one we saw. You remember these kind of rooms? 3,500 acres of empty room. So this man is the first man who kind of properly saved Paris in terms of foundation. And so how wild is one of these paths? I'm 5'7". I'm exactly Napoleon size, right? Wink, wink for some who are like interested in Napoleon. This is the width of one of these corridors. This is the height, about 6 feet something. And so 80 miles of this underneath the streets of Paris. For those who speak with normal numbers, about 150 kilometers. So he puts numbers. This is the very first pillar that this man built. We are the 4th of April, 1777. He's going to take his office. Do you remember the first day at your job, your first main job? Well, this guy was certainly desperate because the first day of his job, a street two blocks away from his building collapsed. Like, it took the entire day, about 30 people died, and the entire street, 150 yards of a street, just collapsed 90 feet down, almost. So this is it. His first pillar, 1, J for Guillermo, 1777. This is the beginning of the foundation of Paris. But we have other topics to talk about. Let's look at this. This is the Innocent Cemetery of Paris. This is the largest, not the largest, the most populated cemetery we have ever had in France. This is 1 to 1.2 million dead bodies kept inside it before we emptied it. The Innocent Cemetery dates back to 1023, 1033, according to the sources. Until 1977, we thought it was around the year 1000 that this cemetery was born. The thing is that this cemetery is like rather interesting. Look at this on the buildings. This is an engraving dating from the 1780s. You have this church which has Renaissance stained glass windows, then buildings around here. The arcade is from the 1200s, medieval wonderful houses with I forgot the name right now, but with timber and plaster, right? And people building their house next to the cemetery. It looks not too much populated. The emptying job has already started when this is done. This is a view from inside. Actually, it is rather the same view. People are like depicting the same story here, and it's a mess. It's a bit small, but you have mass grave wherever you can, and you can see people are not buried in a coffin. People are just thrown inside a piece of cloth. And so le linceul, this is how it looks from inside. You can see this romanticized version on the right side. You see these, the skulls, pyramids of skulls inside the cemetery. This is definitely romanticized by the man who did the drawing. But remember that picture, I'm going to come back to it. What is this? The walls. What's inside the walls over here? There are bones, isn't it? How does this work? When the Romans were here, people were still buried alone, sometimes cremated. Then they got Christianized, so less and less cremation. The only way to get cremation under a Christian realm is actually to get the skip the line ticket and it's a full experience. It's like Airbnb, right? You get your ticket, you go on a stake, they set it up for you, and it's getting warm, and you got the full thing. But eventually, normally we don't cremate people, so it takes some space. Eventually, 5th century, Paris is fine. There is nobody living in there compared to other cities in Europe. Problem is, 800s, so the Vikings are coming from the north of Europe, and these people are not so as charming as they are today, right? They are still blonde, blue eyes, right? But eventually, they didn't come in the 800s with ABBA, Lego, or IKEA, right? They are not singing Waterloo, no. So eventually, the Vikings are going to raid Paris several times during the 9th century. And when they raid Paris, afterward, there was kind of an antibiotic reaction, like an antibody reaction. We're going to build walls around most of our cities. The thing is that when you build walls around the city, you are going to trap sometimes the cemeteries inside. And this is what happened with the Innocent Cemetery. So because this cemetery was outside the city center, and it didn't have the same name, and it changed. And when it got inside, things are going to evolve. The thing is that when you trap a cemetery inside the city wall, you cannot bury people alone anymore. You open huge mass graves, you can bury up to 1 to 3,000 people inside, and that's it. Mass grave, mass grave, mass grave. 400 years later, 1200s, what's happening? We're going to have a king called Philippe Auguste, the man who built the fortress of Versailles. This man, the fortress of the Louvre. This man is going to ask to promote the construction of these walls around the cemeteries with Gothic arcades to do what? So that we can actually put the bodies inside the walls. Like the church was already starting to do this in monasteries. We're going to have these in most of the cemeteries in Paris. And eventually, when all the mass graves are full, you're going to put the mass grave, empty them, brush up the bones, and store them inside the attics of these places. This is what you see here. And this is the very last one standing in Paris. This is called I'm writing it, Saint Severin Church. And this is like 500 meters, 500 feet, 500 yards away from Notre Dame, right here. So when you go continue, this is where the Innocent Cemetery was. Look, this is in the very center of Paris now. But what is Paris in the 1780s, right? It's been 5 centuries that we recycle mass graves like this. How does it work? So you have Paris here of the Romans. Most of the Paris of the Romans is here, right? Then you have the Paris of Philippe Auguste, the one who built the Louvre. So the Louvre is a fortress outside. The Philippe Augustian wall is right here. So you have both sides of the city taken. Then you have to wait the 1500s around here. Then 1780s, this is how big Paris is. The problem is that Paris, over the last 2 centuries, has almost like tripled its population. In this place, we have 500,000 people living in the 1700s. This is the most populated city in Europe at this moment of history. So what are we going to do? I mean, just in comparison, this is like having the largest cemetery you ever dreamt about. I don't know if you dream about cemeteries. In the middle of Times Square, imagine 1 to 1.2 million dead bodies rotting in the middle of that square. That's it. But the church has to be destroyed, and we have to empty the cemeteries as well. Many churches are going to be destroyed during the French Revolution. That cemetery is going to do what? Is going to follow. We start to empty the cemetery before we destroy the church, but well, both are going to be gone. This is what the cemetery was. You see that hole on the right side? This is a picture from 1977. This is when we dug the hub of the metro of Paris. The cemetery used to stand here. On the other side, you had the biggest market of Paris, right? Like 2 blocks away, 2 streets away. So you had a huge cemetery. But why do we want to empty a cemetery suddenly? Cannot we find another solution? Build a second level to store more bones, right? We don't want to do that. Why not? Because we had a flood. Look at this. Flood in Paris. The Seine River is here. It's a rain flood. You are right there. And it's not like maybe some of you are familiar with New Orleans. The level of the cemetery is below the level of the water. In Paris, it's not the case. Cemetery above the river. The thing is that we have a rainwater flood. So the water is going to pour into these mass graves. The water is going to whirlpool a little bit and then goo back outside, and goo is going everywhere into people's houses and basement. Everything is going to be tainted. All the guilds of merchants living next to it are going to say, we have to do something. Louis XVI is at the power, the one who lost his head, and he's going to take action. But you know the French administration, legendary efficiency, right? Black screen, 5 years later. And eventually, 1785, what are we going to have? We're going to have to move all the dead bodies from that place to the quarries of Paris that we just started to fix. And so this is an amazing job. Look at this. This man's job is literally to empty these wells. You remember the wells that they were used to take the stone out from? We're going to throw the bones in, and we are going to do what? We are going to actually fill these wells completely. The well is completely full. Someone is going to come with that fork, right, and take it away, right? Suck the bones inside the quarries. His colleague is going to do this, take a little cart and go at the end of the quarries. And when he goes to the end of the quarries, what's happening? He's going to actually throw it as far as he can. And this is how it was supposed to become. So this is where we were supposed to stop 200 years ago, but something changed. By the way, these pictures have been taken by this lovely man who is called Nadar Félix Tournachon. And eventually this man, if you know a little bit of an impressionism, he's the first one to do fake, like use electricity lights to like fake light inside the catacombs and a dark environment to take pictures. This picture took 15 minutes to take. So these two guys were mannequin, actually. He took these pictures. And this is a 15 minutes pose for a selfie, maybe the first one of history. And this man is quite someone because he landed his studio of photography for the very first exhibition of the Impressionists. And this is where they took their name on Impressionists, actually. So Impression Sunrise of Claude Monet was exposed in his studio for the first time. But let's talk about this man. He's called Louis Étienne François Héricard Ferrand de Thury. Have you heard about him? Maybe not, but he's an amazing man. I love him. I'm going to lose my hair exactly the same way as him, right? So I'm a big fan. What about him? I hope you remember his name, but I'm going to call him HT until the end of the tour. So what's going to happen is that this man is going to open the Catacombs of Paris as a museum. He was born a noble. He became an engineer during the French Revolution. He was 9 years old when the French Revolution started, 13 when some members of his family got guillotined. He's an amazing engineer, and he's going to be at the head of the quarries of Paris between 1809 and 1831. 22 years of amazing delight. Look at these entrances, right? As usual, French people don't know how to manage a queue. People are fighting for the last 200 years to get in. And we still have to use candle, moustache, still have fashion. This is still France. So we still have rude people at the entrance of the quarries to open the gates for you. And after you travel all this way to get to this place, we're going to put a welcoming message. And you took the plane, you dealt the queues, you got scammed at the airport in Paris to do what? To get to your hotel, you double the fee, then he doesn't know where the catacombs are. You finally managed to get here. You didn't take a tour, you didn't book the tour with us or with someone else to get a skip down access. But then you have to walk when you get down 133 steps and walk about a kilometer, like 700 yards, something like 1,000 yards, half a mile to get there. And this says to you, arrête, c'est ici l'empire de la mort. So stop. Here is the empire of death. Welcome. And this is what you're going to see for the next half a mile, more than half a mile or so. Have you ever been to a boneyard before? No? Yes? Well, eventually this is a boneyard. This is the biggest boneyard on earth because after we emptied that first cemetery, the Innocent Cemetery, 1 to 1.2 million dead people inside. French people were like, woohoo! And what did they do? They emptied all the other burial places of Paris, up to 40, depending on the accounts I found. So up to 40 burial places buried in. So today, can you guess, right in the private messages, how many people are buried in it? How many people are buried inside the catacombs of Paris? Let's look at other pictures. So eventually, what do you got? Up, tick. I've got 6 million on my right, 6 million on my right, 500 million on my left, 500 million on my left. Oh, this is a lot. This is a lot. 5 million on my left. And so the right answer is about 6 million, right? It's 4 to 6 million people buried in it, right? We cannot bury like a quarter of humanity, but it's already not too bad. 4 to 6 million. Some crazy accounts go up to 8 million. But well, I'm sticking to this. What is that? Why do we have the catacombs, by the way? Why can we visit this boneyard? It was not supposed to be visited, right? It took about 5,000 transfers, dozens of carriages at night to throw these bones in. And we didn't want to visit it because this was supposed to be the last resting place of most of the people that came from these cemeteries in Paris. What do we want? Here is something different. Charles Axel Guillemot and then HT are going to receive tons of letters of people who are going to tell them, hey, where do I mourn my people? When there is no cemeteries, what am I supposed to do? Right? Where am I? The churches are gone, the cemeteries is gone. Where am I supposed to bury, to to mourn my relatives that are buried. So HT made sure, right? It followed what Charles Xavier already started, to put proper panels in stone that says the bones of the cemeteries of the innocent laid to rest in April 1786. And so because of that, you can know which person is, like, more or less, which person is buried where, right? If you have the register, or if you know which cemetery your family were buried in, you can go there. So, but it was not open to a lot of people at the beginning. Let's look at this. He put poems, philosophical sentences, verses of the Bible. This is a poem from Lamartine, right? And what about this one? This may have been added after him, actually, but I really like it. Ils furent ce que nous sommes, poussière jouée du vent, fragiles comme des hommes, faibles comme le néant. So they were what we are, dust, toys of the wind, fragile as the men, as weak as nothing. And so we go through this entire path, and it's like a point A to point B. There is no other paths, actually. If you don't take a guided tour with a licensed guide who actually is able to buy these tickets, these special access, you cannot get to some of the most important parts of the catacombs. I'm going to show you one of these. So we're in a Christian Catholic boneyard, so we are going to see these crosses a lot of times. This is again a picture of Nadar from the beginning. You can see how carefully everything was displayed. Of course, it has been more than 200 years that this has been opened, so things have changed today. Many people stole skulls. Many of them were broken. I'm showing this picture because we are going to be able to compare with what things are today. So you can see when you look on the left side, some of the skulls start to be broken. Some of them are going to go missing. You're evaluating these paths. There was one of the only tombstone. There are two tombstones in catacombs that was here that was stolen in 1907 for a couple who had was like reunited in that cemetery. And you can start to see already, right, how it decayed. Some of the skull missing. They tried to add like cement, plaster to all these. At the very beginning, there was nothing to all these walls. And maybe as you can see on that picture, only the first layer of the wall is organized. You have like the length of a femur, right? The longest bone, or a tibia, like close to the same size. And you have like this length. And then the rest is thrown inside. It's not supposed to be organized at the back. So only the first layer is organized. This is one of the few little monuments going across the path. And so this is called a Samaritan fountain. And on either side of the fountain, you have Latin and French verse of the Bible that says, whoever drinketh the water from this fountain should always thirst again. But whoever drinketh the water from this fountain, whoever drinketh the water from this one should always thirst, but whoever drinketh the water that I shall give him will always find a fountain in his heart. So you have this barrel. What about this barrel? So the barrel room, we're going to see some weird construction, weird elements. What about this one? Eventually, there was a concert that took place the 2nd of April, 1897. You recognize the bones. This is crazy how it was organized. They were playing the macabre dance from Camille de Saint-Saëns. I can give you, it's written like this. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Up, everyone. The church was called Saint Severin a bit earlier, and this is called macabre dance. Up, danse macabre. And so this pillar was in the very center of this barrel. Actually, it's the only picture I could find because I haven't been there for a while. It has been closed since the beginning of lockdown. And then there was no tour. There were no tour. So you have a pillar inside. And so they organized the concert right here. The room was a bit bigger. There was only one wall with bones. 10th of April, journals are telling parties organized in the catacombs of Paris. Crazy people organizing. Look at this one. Eiffel Tower of bones. What about this? I think they sell it in a gift shop. You can build it at home, actual size, right? 6 feet tall. No, come on. So this was made in 1889 for the World Fair. Of course, it has been removed afterwards. And what about this picture? We have seen some crazy elements, but now let's talk about crazy people, just like you and me. Why are we watching this, right? I really love that picture. When I looked at it, you know, I will always imagine what did this person do with that picture? And so I'm imagining, that she took that picture, put it on her fridge, maybe on a bed table or in an album, best trip in Paris. And what about her? Do we know her name? Maybe one day I will know someone who knows her name, and I will be asked to remove the picture. But it finished in the archives of Paris. So eventually, well, it's free of use so far. And this picture is quite crazy to me. We complain about these young generations taking pictures all the time about themselves. And she's clearly happy to be here, right? And we complain usually of these people being so happy taking selfies in the catacombs. That's always been the case since we got in, right? From outside to inside. And this is something crazy. She had the light of the candle is not the light that enabled the picture to be taken. She had to ask at least one person to take the picture and one person or to use the flash or to use a flashlight. So it's kind of a lot of setup to take a picture, isn't it? And I love to call her Nancy. I don't know. Maybe she did like a Christmas postcard with it. I don't know. And so what about her? We're going to understand why she's so happy in there, because we should all be. This is the most important room of the entire catacombs. This is the crypt of the catacombs. 1809, HT arrives in the place, and this is still a mess of bones. He's going to build up these walls of bones, like we have seen from the beginning, and we are going to also open a crypt. HT, Ericard, is going to open a crypt from 1812 to 1954. It will be long gone, but until 1954, that crypt will be open to services. And there is something really important to be considered right here. He was a noble, de Thury, which is not between Paris and Versailles. He was a Christian, he was an engineer, he was trying to make sure people would actually live together in a better harmony. And he lived in a really complicated period. He was born in 1780 and he died in 1854. That means he went through the whole set of the most dramatic history of France, right? When we had, within 63 years, 1789, 1852, 63 years, 7 different regimes, 3 different revolutions, countless amount of leaders and insurrections, fights between civilians in France, civil wars. This is a crazy period. And every single time there is something coming up, you are going, like a battle, a civil war, you are going to maybe try to kill the person sitting next to you, your neighbors. Because of what? Because of different political, religious views, right? Whether this guy wants an emperor, this one wants a king, this one wants a president, right? Or this one is Catholic, Protestant, Jews. You are going to find anything to fight against each other, isn't it? And this man wanted us, and he did a speech of half an hour. I don't have time for the speech of HT during the first service. But there is another priest who actually did a speech in the 1920s after the First World War that I really liked. And if I sum up in my way, it would be to be resumed like this. The question we have to ask, it's not my words. The question we have to ask ourselves is, like, what are the names of our both parents? And each of us can ask the name of our both parents, right? We don't know. Some of us have other stories, and so 2 names, isn't it? We know our babies are made. I don't need to talk about this today, but 2 names. And this man goes on and he said, what are the names of your 4 grandparents? So you can think about it. In my case, it took me so long actually to realize that my grandfather on my mother's side was called George. I didn't realize. And I was calling him Pépère. It was the nickname that we give to some grandfather in France, right? Pépère, it's a nice nickname when you're a child. And so I didn't ask myself what was his real name for a while. Why is that? Because he was dead before I was born. My mom is the 10th of 11 children, Catholic family in Normandy. We are 47 cousins. I never met him. So I know 4 names, but I already missed one person. I never met him. And then the priest went on and he said, what are the names of your great-grandparents? 8 names. Can you think about it? How many of these people do you know? I didn't know much. I know maybe still today, not all of them, 4 or 5 at the top of my head. Otherwise, I have looked into papers. And then he stopped at 16. What are the names of your great-great-grandparents? And you may think it goes far, and it goes too far, isn't it? But eventually, it's not that far. I will be generous with you today. I will give 25 years per generation. We know that in some families, the ladies were giving birth way earlier, like 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. So about 25 years per generation. What about that? That's just a century before you and me were born. A century. That's 4 generations. And we don't know 16 plus 8, 24 out of our 30 direct ancestor in most of the case. Some of us do genealogy, of course, but 16 plus 8, 24 out of 30. And this is a lot. So HT did an analogy, similar analogy. It took a bit more time, but similar analogy. And he said, in these walls, we have some of the oldest cemetery in Paris, in the capital of our country, the densest cemetery of Paris. Can you tell me that the person sitting next to you has nothing to do with you? So much so that you would like to kill him for different point of views. And so the whole point is that when you go inside the quarries of Paris, inside the catacombs, you bring back some of these faiths, some of this brotherhood, whatever religion you are, because everybody was welcomed. This is how the altar looks like today. And we're going to pause on this 2 seconds. I'm going to share another screen. I'm going to share that one. Up. Can you see that screen with the little video popping up? Yes? Up. Can you see that? Yes, no, it's fine. So I'm going to play that one. Tell me if you can hear the sound. This is, you know, these news that were given in movies. This is 1951. I love the tone of their voice. They explain what I told you from the beginning. So, just that video, 1951, and eventually they didn't know how old the cemetery was. I can tell you now. When they dug the metro of Paris, they realized that there were some graves that were called Merovingian graves. That means dating from the 5th or 6th century, the first generations of kings of France. And so because of that, we could date this area, maybe not the cemetery itself, but this area as a cemetery from the 6th century. So it's really one of the oldest cemetery in town. This is how the altar looks like. And so you have to understand this. When you go to the catacombs, if you don't get, this is a restricted area. You have got a special right of speech to get in from a tour guide to get in. And if you don't get this, the fact that this was built to make us understand how close we are from one another, you are missing the catacombs a little bit. You are getting just to the catacombs to get the freak show. And it's a shame, right? There is so much more to see. This is my very favorite spot in the catacombs of Paris. Look at this. It says, silence, mortal beings. Silence, être mortel. Vaine grandeur, silence. Right on the right side, silence, mortal beings, vain, fames, silence. And then there is a poem. And what's really interesting is that, so HT was the administrator from 1809 to 1831. And you have a lot of these influences from Egypt at this moment, because in the 1820s, we just deciphered the Rosetta Stone, Champollion, a man who is a great man who deciphered hieroglyphics for the first time, buried next to Jim Morrison. And we could understand what was the Necronomicon all about. Maybe you have heard that word before, Necronomicon. I'm going to write it in the group. Necronomicon. And so you have an entire wave. It's called it's the Book of the Dead. And so it was like so famous at that moment because it's important to understand all the belief surrounding death in the Egyptian antiquity. It's going to influence a lot of people in the 19th century called Egyptomaniac. Well, properly speaking, HT wasn't an Egyptomaniac, but well, he was interested and influenced a little bit by this. And so what about the Book of the Dead? There is a belief, it's going to be really interesting in the ancient Egyptian, the belief that one actually dies twice. And so the first time is when your soul leaves your body. The second is when the last person who can pronounce your name dies, when you are forgotten. This is the true death. And this is why when you go to any Egyptian collection, whether it's the Louvre, the British Museum, the Met, you actually see the names of these pharaohs over and over and over and over again, as if it was a dog peeing on each wall. And so this is exactly what happens. You are writing your name so that people can pronounce it and you live forever. Tutankhamun is going to have a great time right now. The thing is that HT is a Christian believer, and he's even buried in next to the Vatican in St. Louis of the French, where he finished his life in Italy. And he wants people who are believing or people who are not believing, because we're after the French Revolution. Don't remember, we are a country that killed kings and that killed God. We destroyed churches at that moment of history. So he wants to remind everybody of our own condition. And he wants to remind us this in a peaceful way. So this is a poem written in the 1780s by Gilbert. And so let's read it in French and in English. I'm trying to not break the entire mood today. It says, Au banquet de la vie, infortuné convive, j'apparus un jour et je meurs. Je meurs et sur ma tombe où lentement j'arrive, nul ne viendra verser des pleurs. So in English, at the banquet of life, unfortunate guest, I appeared one day and I died. And as I die, and on my tomb where slowly I arrive, nobody will ever come to shed a tear. And is that supposed to be sad? Right? A good reason to get a drink, isn't it? Right? All of you, we should have our, like, it's just water today. But is this supposed to be sad? It's not. It's supposed to remind us that what you should enjoy and appreciate is here and now. Some of you are not alone watching this too, isn't it? And that's the whole point of life, right? Taking care of each other. And even if you're alone today, right, there is always people that you care for, and there is always someone that cares for you, whether you know it or not. And so if I have, maybe, I'm 31 years old now, maybe in 50 years, I will still do that job and still do that tour. And I will have to explain this to people that don't know how to read and write and just talk with hashtags. I will have to say, hashtag no regrets, right? Hashtag one life, one shot, make it count. Could be a commercial for Kentucky tours. But now, these were the most important parts of the museum. If you have any questions, go for it. Some people already asked and I answered while I was doing the presentation. But now we're going to have something else. Let's go there. What is that? So some of the source plaque of Paris have a special indication on it. I'm going to write it here. I should have taken a picture. You can get the picture next time when you go on our Instagram. It's Paris and Beyond Tours on Instagram. Sometimes it's written IGC or IDC. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's a ladder. This is not really the official tour, because just to make it clear, at the beginning we're at quarries. Where the problem with the bones, we put the bones inside the quarries, and we call that area the catacombs after calling it the boneyard. We call it the catacombs because HT was a visionary, and he said, people during this period, they cannot guide in person, they are going to guide online, and catacombs, it's more catchy than boneyard, or it's more sellable on Viator, I guess. But what is this? I have a question that as I've been to catacombs, why did they shorten it? There is a little part of the catacombs that I'm going to show it on the map afterwards. There's a part of the catacombs that has been removed, and and because there was no bones in that path, it was just the evacuation, and now you only pass by the bones, and so it allows more people to get in. You can only get 200 people at the same time in the museum. This is how much intake the ventilation system can take care of, because otherwise there is too much CO2 at the same time and it's too acidic for the bones, what calcium. What is that? That's a scene of battle in the boneyard, 1871. Battles are raging. There is a civil war in Paris, and we are having a fight. And the fight is going to also take place underneath in the grounds of Paris. When you go here, this is after the First World War. We built a bunker, right? And we built several of them actually underneath some train stations as well, underneath some buildings like the Luxembourg Palace and underneath like some universities. And so it's going to be great. This one, you can visit it. If some of you joined after they looked the little live that's going to be on a Facebook page this afternoon, at the very end, I showed this like Museum of the Resistance, right? So where they could coordinate with the American Army. And this is where it takes place. You can go down for free. And you have these ones, and you've got the last. And when the Germans came in during the Second World War, they seized some of these bunkers. They just didn't realize how big the network was because they were trapped inside. We just sealed around the bunkers to make sure that they wouldn't think it was so huge. So the resistance was using a lot. This is like emergency exit. When they come, the first thing they do, rauchen verboten, right? Smoking forbidden. Really good, efficient. Let's look at this for 2 seconds. I have a question here that's rather interesting. Do you think that the catacombs have been compromised by tourism? I think that everything is compromised by tourism. It's like, it's a bit like Schrödinger box, you know? Like there is a cat in a box. If you open it, it may die. It's the same thing with everything. When you look at something, the fact of looking at it may be degrading it, right? So it's the same thing, but we cannot like stop ourselves from traveling and being curious, I would say. And it's just the way the thing is that it has been compromised by tourism in a way that some people would steal the skulls. I mean, a skull of the catacombs of Paris, if you go on the black market, is between 150 to 200 euros. So it's like sometimes it's attractive, but the fines are really high if you get caught today. But in 1970s, it was like every day, and the guards didn't even care. The job of the guards in the 1970s was to get in, get the skulls, put them on the walls, like get the skulls from the back, right, and put them back on the wall. They stopped to do this in the 1990s. You can see pictures, right, of people changing the skulls. What is that map? It's called a nexus. What about a nexus? It's a map. Maybe you have heard of these types of map. It's a generic name, nexus. This one has a specific name. Don't try to get any nexuses on internet. Not all of them are good. This is a A0 size. When you print it, it has to be the size of a movie theater poster. This is how much detail there is on it. This is one of the 6, 7 most important networks of quarries in Paris, because I show you the big map at the beginning, but it's cut into different networks. And this is the Grain South network. Look at this circle over here. Look at this circle over here, same circle. This in black is what we actually just visited. And some of you were asking about like, why did they shorten it? What they removed is that part, which was a long corridor leading to a well. And so all the bones are here. All of them are here. On that corridor, there were no bones, so they thought we just shorten it and we exit from here now. And so up we are, right here. This is d'Enfer Rochereau. And today I did a live like little walk and you will be able to see on my Facebook chat. It's Rue Daguerre, and that street is right here underneath it, right? This is it, Rue Daguerre. And so then you get out, and this is the entrance of the catacombs, the entrance of the bunker. And so all the bones are in this area. You have some bones in other places. So what have we got here? A massive network. Resistance. Some of the resistance were medicine students. And these medicine students, what do they do after the World War ends? They go back to studying, isn't it? And when they are studying, what do they want to do as students? They want to do fraternity parties, isn't it? Hazing, have fun. So they go party. Eventually, this is an example of what the mine students of Paris are doing. This is a fresco every year from the 1980s. They are painting it on the walls, right? This is promotion 1985, I believe. Notre Dame, promotion Notre Dame, every graduation, right? They do these little frescoes. So you have like dozens of them now. This is what can happen. Can you understand? Some of you are coming from these like learning French groups. And so you have got indemne après 30 heures au fond non plus. You can find this article online. So this guy, 21 years old, just went in the catacombs of Paris and eventually got lost and fell into a well. So after a party, maybe he was a bit too drunk, and it took about 36 hours to take him out of the 16th district of Paris. It's not a big, not a big thing. What about this? When all the students are starting to do it, right? The medicines and engineers, right? The coolest ones. Then humanities are following, right? Look at his scarf. Totally recognizable. This man is studying philosophy or sociology. And they go party. Well, eventually, this is an anti-bombing shelter of the Cold War. And this actually has been bought back by someone who is rather famous as a cataphile, a lover of the catacombs. Remember, quarries. Catacombs is the place where there is only a few bones, only a few places there are bones. And then these word catacombs get to the entire network. And so this man, right, is called Xavier Niel. And he bought this place and he let some cataphile enjoy this place before he transformed it into a castle, kind of. He calls it the Bat Cave in some of these interviews. This is called the cellar. What about the cellar? This is where we used to brew a beer, that beer, like Gallia, at the beginning of the 20th century. They still brew that beer. It's kind of really nice. They have different versions and it seems the same yeast today. So you can enjoy a beer that was brewed in the quarries. Same taste. What is this one? What about this? This is called a wave of Okusai. And right, this is one of the views of the Mount Fuji. This room is called a beach. And yeah, the catacombs are really versatile indeed. And you have like hundreds of these little rooms. Every of these little rooms has got a little of a name, of a feeling, of like people going to do different things. Just next to this one, there is a movie theater. We're going to talk to you about another movie theater. This is the castle, right? La Salle du Château. And people are playing D&D in there. So you have like a lot of places like this in the catacombs. They are huge. And eventually, what are we going to have? The catacombs is also where we are going to have the Dead Poets Society in Paris. Look at this. Dead Poets Society of Paris. There's a place called the Poets Club, Le Club des Poètes, 30 Rue de Bourgogne. You can watch their page on Facebook as well. And they recite poetry all the time, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday night at 10 p.m. Amazing people. And some of them are cataphiles, so they go down and organize dinners like this, where everybody is going to recite poetry as well. This is my favorite group. They're called the UX. UX, and it's called Urban Experiment. And someone asked me about Le Club des Poètes. It's called Le Club des Poètes. Like this, you can look at this and like there's only one place in Paris, Le Club des Poètes. And so what about these ones? You remember at the beginning of the tour, I told you there were some quarries across the river from the Eiffel Tower underneath the Trocadero. There is this double wing museum over there. And these people got into these quarries. They knew that in the welfare of 1900, these quarries were rather secured and organized, that we could show during the World Exhibition of 1900, like some engineering techniques of mining. And so what happened is that they organized one room and they poached the electricity from the museum above for more than 10 years to actually do their movie theater. I guess they were watching Matrix, right, in that thing. But I really like is like these curtains and this thing. It really looks like the man actually stole the curtains from their mom. But it's a lovely place. And when they got caught at some point, they were actually leaving a note. They said, well, we have other movie theater rooms. This is me when I go down there from time to time. Just to remind everybody, this is illegal. When I go down there, I can be fined. And it's I don't have my helmet right now. My colleague is wearing it. But I love to do speleology. And next time, you can follow me on my Instagram. I'm looking for, because during the battle of 1870, 1871, the first battle I talked to you about in the huge network of the quarries, some of the soldiers were there for several days, and there are some of the graffitis of these soldiers on the wall. So I'm looking for this when I'm going down. And also sometimes you can still go to the German bunker. You can, some places that have not been yet reused as a museum, I would say. And you can find bullets. You can find things like this, militia from the Second World War in the quarries of Paris. So it's a great network to explore. But what about this? Before we end the tour, so I have had some questions right now. I send you back the tipping link. It's just that these tours are running on a donation base. And so if you feel like it, if it's not going too much into your latte budget, it's fine. Otherwise, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can like follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, everything you need. And we post things that are free usually. So just support us as you feel like. And so whether subscribing or with money. So what is this? This is a room which is inside the boneyard. It's called like, there's a lovely pillar over here and a lovely poem on it. And you can see this Airbnb logo, because Airbnb loves to do these like nice operation, market comparison. They did two like this in Paris. You had this one in the Catacombs, 2014. 2019, they did one in the Louvre, where a couple could sleep underneath, because of her. She won the competition, and underneath one of the pyramids of the Louvre. And they had like, I think, a champagne in front of Mona Lisa, dinner in front of Mendes de Milo. Well, 2014, there is a man coming from Brazil who won the right to sleep one night inside the Catacombs of Paris. Of course, you will ask me, how did they do this? This is not a resting place anymore. This became a museum after 1809. And, well, you can rent it. I mean, anybody here, Shona, Charles, Judith, you can all rent this place for $5,000 from 8:30 p.m. to midnight 30. You can rent this place, whether it's for a birthday party. You can invite Ronald from McDonald's. You can do a corporate event. It doesn't matter. And so eventually they rent it for 350,000 euros, 2 days, 1 night. And they set up the bed, white table, champagne. If you're good at it, you can spot the Dom Perignon bottle right here, candlelight. Isn't it night? And then the poem comes over here. And so what does the poem say? It's going to be the happy note. For those who speak French, pensez le matin que vous n'irez peut-être pas jusqu'au soir, et au soir que vous n'irez peut-être pas jusqu'au matin. So think in the morning that you may not make it to the night, and at night that you may not make it to the morning. That's the new slogan of Airbnb. Airbnb, a brand new world. So I hope that you enjoyed the tour. Eventually, we're going to, if you have other questions, I'm all here for you for the next few minutes. And we are bang on time. You can follow us for our next tours next week. I'm going to do a tour, a live tour from the streets of Montmartre. It's going to be with my wife. She's going to be at home, and I'm going to be there in case of loss of connection. And we're going to have amazing stories and visuals about Picasso, about Renoir, about what happened in the Moulin Rouge, but also talk about the Sacred Heart, Joan of Arc, St. Louis, all of these people, the first saint of Paris, who walked with his head more than 4 miles. He walked with his head in his head. And in 2 weeks, we're going to have Paris and Her Story, done by Josephine. She's a bit sick right now. She was supposed to do it today, but she's going to be ready as hell in 2 weeks. I'm receiving a lot of messages. Thank you very much. And I hope that everything is going well. I have one question. Well. Where are people buried now? And that's an interesting question. Let's go for it. Come on. Tack. Let's go for it. So if you want to leave, it's fine. Otherwise, we're going to a few questions here. Where are people buried now? That's a really interesting question, because in Paris today, all the cemeteries are full, and you're on waiting list sometimes. Sometimes the waiting list is long. You have to be buried outside, come back. So I'm coming back to the map of Paris with the location of that huge cemetery. Up, that's it, boom. So you can see Paris. Paris in the 1860s is here, right? The big one. But Paris in the 1780s is here. You see, it's line 2 and line 6 of the metro of Paris if you have already been there. And so that's Paris of the 1780s. There was a wall over here, le mur des fermiers généraux. And so eventually, when Napoleon arrives at the power, he continues what was started already just before him to build new cemeteries outside the city center. And they just stuck the cemetery next to the city center, which is here, Père Lachaise, which is here, Sacred Heart, the Montmartre Cemetery, which is here, Passy Cemetery, P-A-S-S-Y, and then Montparnasse, sorry, in the south. So you have 4 cemeteries outside the city center. And so eventually, what have we got? We're going to bury people alone, and we keep burying people alone today. The graves can be full, up to 30, 40, 50 people inside the same grave. When the grave is full, you can put back the bones all together into one box. If you do so, you don't have the right to cremate it. If you choose to cremate the bodies of the people of your family, you can not mix them afterwards. So it's like box like this of cremation. And so eventually, what do we got? We only rent the place that we are buried in France. You rent it for 10 years, 30 years, 50 years, 99 years, and that's it. After that time, the judge, there is a judge dedicated to this, is going to send a request to the family for you to or extend the lease or to remove the body. First letter, they wait 3 years. Second letter, they wait 3 more years. And then they send a third letter, that's your last chance. They don't wait after you. They leave like 3 months, legal month, and then it's gone. They remove your body and they put you in a boneyard that used to be underneath this place or in other areas of Paris. Now the boneyard is full over here. We have about 1 million people buried in that cemetery. It's called the Père Lachaise. With only 70,000 graves. 1 million people buried in 70,000 graves. The rest of the people are buried somewhere else today in a new boneyard built outside the city center. And so this is it. You just rent your spot. And actually, the Père Lachaise is an amazing tour to do. Maybe we're going to do a video over there about the Père Lachaise. Jim Morrison, Chopin, Oscar Wilde, Gertrude Stein, all of these, Géricault, the painter of the Raft of the Medusa, David, the official painter of Napoleon, the Dr. Paul Gachet, the last doctor of Van Gogh, a lot of these people, Balzac, Rossini, not the Rossini that you know, but many people are buried in there. Most of the famous people are buried in there. It's an amazing cemetery, I would say. And so I have several questions. So we have a Facebook page. So the Facebook page is Paris and Beyond Tours. You can like, follow. We do a lot of free events. We have, so I have a question. Can you do a tour about film history? The Lumière brothers, the studio outside Paris, Luc Besson, the Cinémathèque Française. I love cinema, and I worked for a company that was set in Paris at some point, and so we were going through the streets of Paris to get like what they did, like Paris, Midnight in Paris on Wheel, or the Liberation of Paris movies, or all these kind of things. We can do something like this. Maybe it will take me some time to do something something good, but I will keep you up to date. You can sign up and I will make sure I get you in. Good night to Romania. It's already 10:30 p.m. over there. And then it's true that the Russians and Germans were both very close in the catacombs in the World War, and they never found each other. I hope the person who asked that question is still here. Please tell me if you are still here, but otherwise I show you back the map. And this is—
I'm still here.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to show you the map. Normally there's this thing that doesn't go up. Come on.
Because we're still here. We're doing homeschool with you. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. It's fine. It's my pleasure. So we are back at this map. This is the local map of the catacombs. So now you see this? So this is the bunker that was used. The Germans knew about this bunker and they kept ringing it when Paris was starting to be invaded by the Allied troops. The resistance seized it at the very beginning, and they used it as a post of command to send instruction to the troops over the next few days of the liberation of Paris. Amazing spot. So they know about this one. And then, let's look a bit up. Around here, here. This is where the bunker, the German bunker is. So the German bunker looks like this. This is the zoom of the German bunker, right? Here, it's there. So this is where the German bunker is. And so eventually, what about that German bunker? It is literally like flying 600 meters away from the entrance, like 600 yards. It's not even a kilometer to get there. Maybe close to a kilometer, so half a mile away from the most important German bunker over there. So they knew about this one, of course, but they thought these ones were trapped. Let's look back. Up, tack. Look at this. So this is surrounded by walls, actually. These you don't have an idea because you don't know how old the walls can be if they are old with mortar, because it doesn't show too much. And so, oh, I've got yes. I don't know your name because there is like it's what is it called? It's a nickname that you took for your thing. But the Cappuccino monks, well, I'm going to come back to this. So, but eventually for the resistance, they never really found each other. And you have like a lot of these rooms, you know, that are so tiny. To get into these rooms, I'm going to show this a picture on my Instagram next time. It's what we call une chatière. So literally a catwalk. And so you have to like really ramp at the bottom. And even me, who is not too large, I have to put myself in diagonal so that my shoulder can pass some of these holes. So it's really, really tiny, and you cannot go back. You have to go straight, and that's it. So a lot of these rooms are really hidden, and you can hide weapons if they are greased well. You can like hide weapons for like few weeks, few months. And so someone was making a comment about Cappuccino monks. This is a boneyard. The Catacombs of Paris are a boneyard. And this is not an actual catacombs. Catacombs is a proper name that has been given to underground cemeteries in Rome, right? This is where the name comes from, catacomba. And so this is maybe inspired from Greek kata, next to, comba, the graves, the tombs. Well, eventually, if you want to see bones when you travel to Italy, other places of France or Europe, right? You have to type a boneyard. And if you go to Italy, there's a place called, now I can write, it's much more easy. Santa Maria, if I write it, Concezione. I'm sorry for my accent, it's so shameful on me. But, and so you have a Capuchin monks boneyard. So basically you type cappuccino and you type monks and you type bones on Google, you are going to find it. So I don't see any more questions. A lot of thanks. Thank you to be here. You are the one making these Paris and Beyond tours alive. We are really waiting for you to come back to Paris. I hope that I addressed all the questions that popped up. And if not, you can always message us. I sent the link for the last time. And then goodbye, ladies and gentlemen, and maybe see you next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome, Charles. And I will not forget your tour about the cinema. Eileen, are you still here? 2 seconds. So you know why the catacombs have been called the catacombs, by the way? The nickname of the catacombs appeared just before 1809, before HT was there. And the thing is that HT needs money to organize what he wants to organize inside. At this moment, 1809, who is at the power? A small angry man called Napoleon I, who puts his hand in the pocket like this. And eventually, Napoleon is transforming the city of Paris already dramatically. We are going to the Arch of Triumph, just like in Rome, right? An Arch of Triumph for the army. When they come back, they can go underneath, get purified, and come victorious in town. We're going to change the name of the Saint Genevieve Church, which is now the Pantheon. There are only 2 Pantheon on Earth. The one in Rome, the one in Paris. There is no other buildings called Pantheon, or maybe they came after. So 2 Pantheon, and then we're going to have a column of victory instead of Louis XIV statue on the Vendôme Square. we are going to have what? An obelisk. The obelisk came way later, but it's during the campaign of Egypt that Napoleon thought it would be nice in a Parisian square, just like in Rome, right? Having an obelisk in front of a sacred place, his palace maybe, or an arch of triumph to his glory. So all of these monuments, right, that are really Roman imperial, like that are really setting Paris into this Roman Empire mood, are missing something. We lack a bit of history, isn't it? And so we're going to properly, officially change the name of the boneyard, l'ossuaire, that you may have seen on the panels over there, to the Catacombs of Paris at this moment of history. So I hope that you enjoyed, and it was really a pleasure to see you again. Thank you very much, Lynn, and good night. I mean, it's still noon for you. Thank you from Croatia. Thank you, Austria. Thank you, Romania. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.